I'd like to welcome everyone to SoftBase's first installment of continuing education on DB2. Today's topic will be 6 steps to determining whether or not DB2 MultiRow Fetch is right for your shop. I want to thank everyone for joining us and taking time out of their busy schedules. Our agenda today will involve a 15-minute presentation followed by an open Q&A forum. In order to make sure we keep things simple and answer everybody's questions, I'd like everybody to please use the GoToWebinar instant messaging tool on the right side of your screen. If you don't see an interaction screen right now, you should see a tab in the upper right-hand corner with an orange arrow icon. If you click on that icon on the arrow, it should open up the interaction screen. Then you'll want to look towards the bottom. You want to look towards the bottom for your questions section. You should see a tab with a plus sign to the left of the questions. You click on that. That should open up the dialog box. You want to type your questions into the text field and then hit send. We will answer all questions in the order received, starting with the questions we collect and hold in queue during the presentation. We do also plan to have a couple of quick, brief polling questions during the presentation to help provide a little more insight into performance and efficiency challenges. All right, let's go ahead and dig in. My name is Scott Garrett. I'm going to be your presenter today. My colleagues that will be handling all your questions are Jim Spires. He heads up our Batch Healthcare Suite development team. He's got decades of mainframe experience, and before SoftBase, he had spent time in multiple mainframe shops, so he can speak to your world from experience. We have Neil Lozens, who heads up our test-based suite development team. He's got decades of DB2 experience and consulting. We also have Chip Scardo, who managed the development of our no-recoding MultiRow Fetch solution. And last but certainly not least, we have Chris Gentle. He managed the majority of our proof of concept or trials last year regarding MultiRow Fetch. Okay, before we get into the 6 steps, I'd like to give you a little bit of the basics on MultiRow Fetch, just make sure we're all on the same page. As I'm sure most of you are aware, it's been around since version 8 of DB2. It was touted initially by IBM as a great way to reduce and prevent escalating mainframe costs. What IBM skimmed over, though, was how much work would be involved implementing MultiRow Fetch. To give you kind of a basic definition, MRF retrieves multiple rows via an open cursor into a column array into your application program. In contrast, of course, to a traditional fetch, single row fetch, which returns a single row per open cursor. 2 diagrams at your right here illustrate the 2 concepts. The diagram at the top shows your traditional fetch scenario, 1 row at a time, incurring a lot of overhead, moving only 3 rows. The diagram at the bottom shows the multi-row fetch scenario, requesting multiple rows at a time back into the application program via an array. And if you look to compare the 2 scenarios, MRF with only 2 cursors returns almost 7 times as many rows as the single row fetch did with 3 cursors. Pretty obvious to see the savings. And the best thing about the savings in multi-row fetch is it can be seen in both CPU and elapsed time. Our experience over the last year working with existing customers, betas, proof of concepts, and trials, we've seen the savings range anywhere from about 25 to 75% with your best cursors. The average falling pretty much in the middle, around 50%. So whether you're worried about breaching your 4-hour peak window, a CPU upgrade, or a batch window completing on time, multi-row fetch can help. All right, so now you know a little bit about the history of MultiRow Fetch, its definition and concept. You also know about the potential benefits and performance and savings, and you know some of the basic problems it can address. So why have most shops out there only implemented MultiRow Fetch on a limited basis or not at all? When you reach out and you talk to most of them, the reasons fall under the usual project delays. It requires a lot of recoding and testing. It's going to be time-consuming and expensive, and other projects and fires pop up often to take priority. However, when you dig past the basic reasons here and look for the real underlying problem with implementing multi-row fetch, it isn't all of the above. It's locating MRF cursor candidates and quantifying their potential savings. Once you know your potential savings and ROI, the aforementioned problems can easily be rectified. All right. We're going to go ahead here and put in our first poll question. Give you guys about 30 seconds to respond, and then we'll bring up the results and let everybody see them. Okay, we're going to pull it up now. All right. So if everybody could please answer the poll there, we'll give it about 30 seconds and then we'll show the results. Okay, we'll give about another 10 seconds. All right, we'll go ahead and close this one and reveal the results. All right, looks like the majority here, it's difficult to figure out which applications would benefit, and then of course the usual not enough developer resources and other priorities. Okay, all right. Okay. All right, now we'll dig into our 6 steps to justifying multi-row fetch. We've broken it out into 3 phases. Phase 1 is plan and monitor. Phase 2 is spreadsheet, sort and filter. And phase 3 is calculation, resulting in savings and ROI. Step 1 is your preliminary analysis. This is where you're going to identify critical time frames at your site and the impact DB2 batch jobs have on the overall CPU utilization. This may be in your daily batch, your end of month, quarter end, or other critical processing windows. Step 2, once you've identified these critical time frames, you're going to use your existing monitor tools to report on DB2 fetches during those times. Steps 3 through 5 will be the filtering and sorting process, where we'll take the data you gathered, plug it into a spreadsheet or ROI calculator, and come up with your best MRF candidates and the bulk savings. Step 6, we will take those results and then calculate the complete potential savings and ROI. And this will be the initial based on your bulk CPU savings for MRF. All right, let's get into step 1. To pinpoint your most critical time frames, a good place to start is a discussion with your capacity planning team. For instance, if they use SAS, this is an excellent product for producing reports from data repositories such as SMF, MXG, or others. These reports can provide you an initial insight into critical time frames and the impact of DB2. Another approach is using reports from scheduling packages, such as CA7, Rivoli Workload Scheduler, and OBC. These packages are useful in identifying the jobs scheduled to run during the critical time frame. For example, a user might request an OPC report. It requires a DB2 subsystem. Look for jobs that require that. Or, as you can see in this example here, you might set up a daily report to monitor the hours between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. A discussion with those individuals in your installation team responsible for job scheduling may also help provide some insight into other reports that can help you. Last but not least, you can look at your ZOS monitoring tools, such as TMON, MainView, Rivoli OmegaMon, and Strobe. These are all excellent tools that can aid in the preliminary analysis. These tools will not identify a DB2 cursor and or the associated fetch count. However, they may infer which jobs should be targeted for more in-depth analysis. All right, step 2. Once you've talked with your capacity planning teams, your job scheduling, your system programmers, and they've helped you identify your most critical time frames, you can then begin to set up your existing monitor tools, whether it be AppTune, Detector, or EasyDB2, or some other. And one other thing we want to offer here at this point, too. We have a tool, Batch Analyzer. And the reason I bring it up is due to its contributions last year with R&D, the betas, the proof of concepts, the trials. More often than not, this was used to collect data and provide preliminary analysis for betas, customers, prospects alike. So we are offering a free trial to anyone that deems it's necessary. Once you circle around with your teams, if you think you may have some problems getting to this data, we can help you out. The benefits of Batch Analyzer is it monitors all SQL in your batch window. There's no DB2 traces invoked, so it's very low overhead. And there's no JCL changes required to install, so it's very easy. It easily collects all your necessary data and presents it in understandable, simple to read reports. So regardless of your approach or the tool you use, you must capture on a per cursor basis the following items: job name, step name, program name, cursor name. You must also do the open cursor count, fetch count, the opened elapsed DB2 time, open DB2 CPU time, fetch DB2 elapsed time, and fetch DB2 CPU time. The elapsed times will not be used in the ROI calculation, but they are still something to track because there is savings there also. All right. At this point, after you've collected your data, you have two options. Option one, you can send the data to us, and we'll give you a secure, free analysis and ROI forecast. We'll get you to step 6 quickly and easily, although we may need a little bit additional input for you for step 5, which we will go into a little detail here in a minute. Option 2, of course, is you can export the data to your favorite spreadsheet program and begin to sort and filter the data and calculate your savings internally. All right, step 3. Now we're going to look at the data and begin to filter and sort. Our first filter is a fetch to open ratio. The fetch to open ratio is determined by the number of cursor opens and fetches. As I'm sure you're all aware, open cursors can be a very expensive CPU process. So keep in mind a cursor that is opened and closed multiple times for a small number of rows may not be your wise choice for MultiRow Fetch. If you look at our examples below here, the last one, this is what I'm talking about. This is too low. This would be something that you would set aside. What you really want to look for is row 1 there, where you've got a high fetch to open ratio and you're spending 90 minutes of your CPU time in fetch. This is a great candidate for MultiRow Fetch. So once you've completed your fetch to open analysis using the formula above, fetch count divided by number of cursors opened, you need to set aside the rows that fall below 500 fetches per open cursor. Again, as I was saying earlier, we're looking to give you the bulk of the savings to help justify your project. There are other savings in the ones we're setting aside, but they will not look near as robust as what you'll see in the top candidates. And again, the reasoning here is you want to look for high fetch to open ratio cursors. All right, step 4. This is our second filter. It regards time spent fetching. Basically, the CPU time spent fetching by cursor is derived by dividing fetch DB2 CPU time by open DB2 CPU time plus fetch DB2 CPU time. A value of 50% is a good starting point here for this factor. This will filter out cursors that spend more CPU time in open than in fetch. All right, step 5. This is where we're going to manually remove the lesser qualified cursors. You're going to manually set aside cursors whose access path contains a sort. Some examples may include group by, distinct, and order by. But be careful to check the plan table using explain to confirm a sort has been invoked before setting it aside. Some of these do not actually do that much sorting, and those will still be good candidates for MultiRow Fetch. All right, step 6. Here's where we get to the meat and the ROI. Steps 1 through 5 will provide a list of your top programs and cursors that are likely good candidates for MRF. So now you're going to calculate the savings. You're going to create a column in your spreadsheet titled CPU Time Savings Estimate by Cursor. The formula you will use is fetch DB2 CPU time times 50%. You'll sum these values up for your total potential CPU time reduction for MRF. And the reasoning is 50% is a good start. That's where you're going to get the bulk of your savings. Your mileage may vary per cursor, but on the majority you're going to see somewhere in that 40 to 50 range. And also keep in mind, as I reiterated earlier, you still have some additional lesser candidates that you can go back through on your secondary try. All right. Also, when I was referring back to option 1 and option 2 earlier about you sending us the data or you doing it internally, what we're showing here is a sample to the right of the ROI spreadsheet that Cheryl Larson helped us develop last year. This is what we would use to analyze your data and send you back an ROI calculator. If you guys would like to use this internally, you're more than happy to send it to you. Just reach out to me via my email below, sgarrett@softbase.com. The idea of this this ROI calculator is it pits manual multi-row fetch implementation against our no recoding multi-row fetch solution. All right, to summarize the six steps. Step 1, your preliminary analysis. This is where you're going to investigate your critical time frames. You're going to meet with different groups, look for your batch windows, contributing to peak window, things of that nature. Once you've identified your critical time frames, you're going to set up step 2 your monitors to collect data on those critical time frames identified. Step 3, you're going to use the fetch to open ratio to begin to filter your candidates, looking for your best candidates. Step 4, you're going to look for candidates that are spending more than 50% of their time in fetch. Step 5, you're going to look for candidates that invoke, sort, and set those aside. Again, make sure, though, that they are actually sorting the data. In step 6, you're going to take the initial candidates that we revealed using the filters in 3 through 5 and calculate your initial savings in ROI. All right, I'm going to set up our second poll here. Launch that. Okay, we'll give everybody about 30 seconds to answer on this one. All right, another 10 seconds or so here. All right, we'll go ahead and close it up. And we'll share that with you. Okay, so it looks like a lot of people have been tuning their SQL and legacy apps, batch window, and some updating of operating systems. All right. Okay, we'll go ahead and hide this, get back to the final slide here. All right, again, like I said, this will be where we begin our Q&A session. And I want to, again, remind you to reach out to me if you would like any of our additional resources. We have a document that goes through the 6 steps to identifying your best candidates in multi-row fetch. We also obviously have a copy of the presentation we can send you, the MRF ROI calculator I represented in the last slide. And if after talking with your teams you deem you may need some help with another tool to gather the right data quickly and easily with low overhead, you can reach out to us on Batch Analyzer. We've got a quick install video. It's about 5 minutes, take you through the whole process, and also a checklist and install guide we can send you. I want to also point everybody back to the webinars we did last year with Craig Mullins and Cheryl Larson. As you know, they're 2 of the industry's leading DB2 consultants, and they did a couple of webinars last year for us in reference to tuning SQL and multi-row fetch. As you might expect, they offer some great insights, tips, and tricks in these, so I recommend highly you take a look back at them also.